You guys, I finally achieved what Plankton never could. I have found the secret formula. The secret formula to making a good Conjuring Universe movie. What's up, you guys? It's Nick here at the Lost River Drive-In, and I'm here tonight to give you my review for The Nun II. This is going to be spoiler-free, don't worry. I will get in depth with my thoughts about the movie in spoiler territory on my live stream next week with Justin. You can catch that on Wednesday. But for tonight, I wanted to give you guys my thoughts on The Nun II. Now, this is a movie that I was not super excited for, because if you recall, I was never a huge fan of The Nun. I actually saw that opening night and was like genuinely disappointed with that movie. I really was. And it was a bummer because The Nun was such a cool character introduced in The Conjuring 2. And The Conjuring 2 happens to be my favorite Conjuring universe film. So I thought for a second, well, maybe with some time away, like they did with Annabelle to Annabelle Creation, maybe listening to some of the complaints people had, they might be able to get it right. They might be able to do it better. And I am glad to report that The Nun II is not only a step up from The Nun, but it's in the top half of the Conjuring universe. And here's why. The plot of The Nun II is very straightforward. It takes place in France in 1956, and we follow a boarding school of girls where Frenchie from the first movie is like a caretaker, a handyman around the place, while also juxtaposed to Sister Irene being called by the church to, hey, you gotta go stop this demon, you didn't kill it, and it's on some war path leading to something, and we need you to stop it. The, paths collide, and that's really the plot of The Nun II. It's pretty straightforward. Now, as far as people's roles in the movie, I'm not going to spoil that. I'm not going to say why someone is here and what their purpose is. I'll just tell you who is here. And of course you get Thaisa Farmiga back, and let me just say, powerhouse. I have loved her since the very first season of American Horror Story. I have always felt like she is an underrated actress that doesn't get as much work as I'd like her to get. And maybe she kind of lives in Vera's shadow. I don't know. But it's kind of perfect that her and Vera are both in this franchise, in this universe, because I think she's really given her time to shine in this movie, and I think she does a great job. Probably the best thing I've ever seen her in. Her range. She shows great range in this movie. On top of that, every performance in this movie, from side characters to main characters, is really good. Another thing they did well with this movie that was a knock on The Nun, scaling back some of the CGI. Now, of course, there is some CGI in this movie. There has to be. I mean, there's no such thing as an actual Valek Nun demon. Like, you don't just have that. That's not something that you can just, the shape-shifting shit isn't real in the sense of, like, you couldn't film that. So, you're going to have to use CGI. And I'm again happy to report that the CGI here is lessened. And even when it is used, it is so much more realistic. It is so much more seamless. It doesn't stick out like a sore thumb. Rewatching The Nun the other night, I was genuinely struck by some of the moments of CGI that I was like, well, that's rough. That's not here. Very seamlessly done. Very well done here. Just like in the first movie, this movie has a great aesthetic and atmosphere. But one thing I noticed in this movie that I didn't notice a ton in the first movie, the score. I've got to give it up for the score in this movie. There's multiple moments in this movie where you really can feel the score. I think that a great score can make or break a movie. If you don't really notice a score, you might walk away going, the movie was decent, but it didn't really grab me. There's moments in this movie where it grabs you. So I have to give credit to that. But the biggest, most important thing that this movie did, that none of the Conjuring universe movies, even the first two Conjuring films, which I hold near and dear to my heart, did, was earn its R rating. Let me tell you something. I still prefer the opening sequence in The Nun to The Nun II. I think that opening sequence in The Nun was gothic. It was just chef's kiss. This opening sequence, while nowhere near as memorable, tells you immediately Valek's out for blood. And throughout this movie, there's a sequence where the room is washed out with red, and what happens, and you're like, oh, we're cooking with gas. Like, damn. It's almost like they turned Valek into like a pseudo slasher. It not full blown. I don't want to get people too excited, but wow, is Valek much more of a character in this movie than in The Nun. And there is blood. There are multiple on screen deaths, and nobody is safe. Everybody faces some kind of peril and makes you think for a moment, this could be it for them. So I've got to give massive credit to Michael Chavez, the director, for really saying, we're going to lean into this R. If, none of that R rating, rated R for terror and horrifying images. No, there's blood and gore in this movie, and I love that. There's on-screen death, and I love that. The stakes feel raised. And, to the stakes feeling raised, the third act, there's a false ending in here that I was like, if this is the end of the movie, mid at best. Like, you did not send it home. But boy, does it really ratchet up after that. You're like, okay. Oh shit. All right. Very, very big, bombastic third act, just like in the first film. That's one thing I always gave the first film credit for, with this love-hate relationship I have with it. Right now, I sit with it as it's solid, but the ending of that movie, that third act, is awesome. And this movie delivers in that sense, too. I do think that the ultimate, I guess you could say, showdown with Valek is probably better in the first one, in the sense of its resolution, but I think everything else in this movie is better. So honestly, the only knock I really have on this movie right now is it's two things. It's one, I do feel like the first act of the movie is paced a little awkwardly at times. Sometimes it does drag a little bit. We don't need a ton of backstory. And they spend a little bit of time reminding us of what happened and even showing us some flashbacks. And it's like, this is the Nun II. Like, we know. And when you do stuff like that, I do feel like it can bog your story down. So in the first act of the movie, it did take a little bit to grab me. It really did. And the other thing is, the ultimate conclusion, I should say, to the showdown was a little corny for me. It's like the first movie times 10. In the first movie, what they do is like, oh, hell yeah. I remember being in the theater and being like, oh, that's awesome. In this one, it's like some Santa Claus shit. I don't really know. If you believe, I'm not going to get into spoilers, but that moment for me was like, eh. But everything else about this movie is a vast improvement to The Nun. Vast improvement. So when I said that I think I found the secret formula to making a good Conjuring universe film, what did I mean? Simple. Wait a couple years. See, what happened was The Conjuring came out, and everybody was talking about Annabelle from that movie. So they rushed out Annabelle. And it was bad. It was just a bad movie. And then they came out with Annabelle Creation after taking a few years off. And most people agreed, damn solid movie. What happens? The Conjuring 2 comes out. Everybody's talking about The Nun. So they make The Nun. And a lot of people didn't like that movie. So they take a couple years off. They don't rush out The Nun 2. And most fans seem to be going, solid. You did a better job than the first one. Most people. Now, I know both of those movies have their fans. This is, I'm not here saying that you're not allowed to be a fan of that. So please, for the love of God, do not get offended if you're a fan of those movies. I'm simply just saying that's the general consensus of the public. That is a fact. They didn't really like those movies. And these two sequels seem to have improved on their predecessors. So, the secret formula. If you make a character in the Conjuring universe stick out and get people talking, hold it. Pump the brakes a little bit. Polish that script. Take some time before you go get cameras rolling. We have absolutely, positively got to get this movie out. Because it just, I don't know, it's delivered two subpar movies where the sequels, when given more time, were not subpar. So overall, guys, I give The Nun 2 4 out of 5 stars. Aside from a minor complaint here or there, I think it's just a massive step up from the first movie. There is a mid-credit scene. Please stay for it. It's only like a minute into the credits, so you're not going to have to wait the whole time. And it's worth it. Fans of the universe will be very happy to see what they show. But I want to know what you guys thought of The Nun 2. Please comment down below. Let me know your thoughts. Did you like it? Did you hate it? Was it just mid? Discuss it all down below in the comment section with me. Leave a like on this video if you haven't already. Subscribe to my channel. This is Nick at the Lost River Drive-In, and I'm pulling out because there's this weird nun chilling. Hey, what are you doing? Come here.